Gender and politics. The concept of gender. The concept of gender, how it's defined and understood, has enormous political consequences for women. There are two ways to conceptualize gender: the biological determinism and social construct. Biological determinism. Biological determinism is the most historic way of looking at gender. Biological sex characteristics is equal to gender. Sex is made up of genetic and reproductive characteristics. The reason why it has more political consequences is because of the conception of something about genetic reproductive characteristics that makes women less able to function in society and less able to function in political world. According to the study of Geddes and Thompson 1889, because of biology, women are sluggish, inactive, and naturally uninterested in politics. This kind of ideas leads to political consequences and discriminate women in our society. This biological determinism has a big impact on women's ability to participate in society at large and particularly in politics. Social construct. A social construct is a concept that exists not in objective reality but as a result of human interaction. It exists because humans agree that it exists. Gender is a social construction and part of it is biological sex characteristics. We define gender starting with biological sex characteristics and then socialization into culturally defined gender roles such as girls should play Barbie and boys play cars, and then leads to presentation of gender appropriate behavior and traits like if you are a girl, you should behave like a girl, and if you're a boy, you should act as a boy. The idea of social constructionism empowers women political equality when a society moves from seeing gender as a biological determinism to seeing it more as a social constructionism, because social construct can change while biological characteristics are difficult to change. Gender status in history. Century ago, almost no women held elected office in the world. Women make up half the world's population, but they hold just 19% of seats in the world's 188 parliaments. 50 years ago, there's a 3% rise in only 16 countries, among them Sweden and Norway. The women represent more than one-third of the members of parliament. In the United States of America, in 1920, the first time for American women to vote through 19th Amendment to the Constitution, they were able to legally vote in national elections. One century later, in 2020, thousands of women serve as mayors of cities and towns across the United States, and tens of thousands hold responsible administrative posts in federal government. To look back in 2011, at the state level, 23% of state legislatives were women. That's not even one-fourth, but at least there is some movement. In the Philippines, the country has made great strides in promoting and increasing women's political participation. In fact, two women became President of the Republic of the Philippines, Corazon Aquino and Gloria Arroyo. The proportion of women in politics or public office is still yet to meet the 30% critical mass. 30% critical mass is scholars identify as the minimum percentage necessary for a minority group to be able to influence decision making. From 1998 to 2016, the percentage of elected women ranged from 16.1% to 21.44%, reaching its peak in the 2016 elections. That's when Rodrigo Duterte won as the President of the Philippines. In 2019 national and local elections, only 20.16%, 8,782 of the candidates were female, and that is still far from 30%. The slow increase in women's representation in politics may be attributed to prevailing patriarchal norms and values, Gender stereotypes. It has often been said that politics is more than realm of men than women. Gender stereotypes that consider women as weak, emotional, and indecisive. Qualities that are undesirable in negotiation and decision-making discourage voters from voting for women candidates. Multiple burden, experienced by most women wherein they bear most of the responsibility for performing domestic duties while they engage in political, economic, and social activities, discourages women themselves from running public office. Possible measures. Considering all this and giving the existing constraints to women's political participation, there is therefore a need to adopt temporary special measures to facilitate and accelerate the attainment of de facto gender equality between women and men in terms of political participation and representation. Gender quota system, one of the most popular and widely used strategy. A temporary special measure for the attainment of gender balance in government institutions. A certain number of percentage of the members of a particular body are allocated to a particular sex. Existing laws and policies. There is our 1987 Constitution that upholds the fundamental equality before the law of women and men and recognizes the vital role of women in nation building. It guarantees citizens equal access to opportunities for public service, provides for sectoral representation, which includes women at the local level. There is also the Magna Carta of Women or Republic Act 970. It provides under Section 11 the undertaking of temporary special measures to accelerate the participation and equitable representation of women in all spheres of society, particularly in the decision-making and policy-making process in government and private entities, to fully realize their role as agents and beneficiaries of development. Mandates the adoption of temporary special measures for the incremental increase of women in third-level positions in the civil service until a 50-50 gender balance is achieved. Sets a 40% quota for women in local development councils and planning bodies. Provides for the creation of an incentive system for encouraging political parties to integrate women in their leadership hierarchy, electoral nominating process, among others. Sets a 40% quota for women in local development councils and planning bodies. Provides for the creation of an incentive system for encouraging political parties to integrate women in their leadership hierarchy percent, electoral nominating process, among others. All those laws that I just mentioned in the Philippines are just responding to the existing international laws, such as Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Direct state parties to take all appropriate measures to eliminate discrimination against women in political and public life of the country. Ensures the rights of women to participate in formulation of government policy, the implementation thereof, and to hold public office and perform all public function at all levels of government or equal terms with men. The Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, adopted at the United Nations Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing 1995, calls on all parties to implement affirmative action for the equal participation of women and men in decision-making in order to strengthen democracy and promote its proper functioning. And another one, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, particularly the Goal 5, achieving gender equality, targets women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision-making in political, economic, and public life. All women should be given equal opportunities economically, politically, and socially. They must be respected and never underestimated on the ground that they are women. We are all human and we are all equal. I am Arvin J.P. Alarcon from BASS 2-1. Thank you for watching.